Chapter 1636 Absolute Suppression. Chapter 1636 Absolute Suppression. The cultivators of various forces, each had their own thoughts about this. Even Han Ziyu of Tianshan Academy could not crack the statues. From the looks of it, it would also be difficult for most of them to do so as well. After all, many people had already tried, and none had succeeded. Hence, the idea proposed by Jian Qingzhu of Tianshan Academy was reasonable. The denizens of each realm would choose their strongest cultivator as a representative. The 9 chosen ones would then crack the 9 statues at the same time. The ancient road would then be opened. They could then access the sky stairwell and reach the heavenly palace. However, there was an issue that still remained. What would happen to the rest of them after they had successfully chosen the 9 representatives? Right now nothing was certain. However, there was a huge probability that the 9 chosen ones would seize the greatest opportunities, and they had the highest chances of getting the relics. Even if the rest didn't agree with this idea, what could they do? They could not crack the statues by themselves. Therefore, everyone acquiesced to Jian Qingzhu's proposal. The minority who had opposing ideas could only hold their tongues. Since the rest do not have any objections, then may the 9 realms each choose their respective representative, Jian Qingzhu said. The top forces of the Central Emperor realm numbered the most here. They also had the most top figures here. If they were to descend into an all-out brawl for a spot, it would most likely escalate into a frightening war. Since Jian Qingzhu made such a proposal, he probably wanted this spot. Rather than fighting with Jian Qingzhu over it, the other figures of the Central Emperor realm might as well fight for the spots of other realms. My older brother has already reached the Runhuang Plain and is the top scholar on the book list of Tianshan Academy. Does anyone object to him representing the Imperial realm to crack the statues? A cultivator from Tianshan Academy asked loudly. He was also a prominent scholar on the book list and had some fame in the Central Emperor realm. However, it was impossible for anyone in Tianshan Academy to contend with Jian Qingzhu. We can compete fairly, Jian Qingzhu said. If anyone has any objections and they are at the Runhuang Plain, we can spar to see who is superior. If they are at the Saint Plain, I will also not take advantage of them. We can try to crack the same statue to see who succeeds. These statues seem to contain powerful wills. It seems that cracking these statues is unrelated to one's cultivation. It is just nice for us. We can also check in advance whether cracking these statues will bring about any changes to the ancient road. If cracking the statues beforehand was also counted, they could save some trouble. They would only need to wait for the rest to crack the other statues themselves. Jian Qingzhu's words were very reasonable. No one in the Central Emperor realm went against him. There was no need to contend with Jian Qingzhu. He was the top scholar of the juniors of Tianshan Academy. Now that he had reached the Runhuang Plain, defeating him was too difficult. The other cultivators from other realms were also debating. On the Heavenly Mandate realm's side, everyone was clearly very harmonious. The Heavenly Mandate dynasty, the Violet Heavenly Palace, and the forces that opposed Yi Futian had already lost pathetically to Yi Futian's forces. The other forces all had good relations with Yi Futian, and also acknowledged his ability. Not long ago, in the battle in the Spatial Sacred Hall, they also came to realize that no one in the Heavenly Mandate realm could contend with Yi Futian. Hence, very tacitly, everyone looked in the direction where Yi Futian was. You should go. Beside Yi Futian, Qin he said to him in a low voice. Among the top figures of the 9 realms, there will most likely be members from other realms who will want to seize our Heavenly Mandate realm's spot. Rather than that happening, we are more confident if we give the spot to you. As she said this, her gaze swept over the crowd beside them. She asked, "What does everyone else think?" Longchen nodded in agreement. This time, it was subtly a contest to see who was strongest in the 9 realms. In reality, Yi Futian was also considered the hope of the Heavenly Mandate realm in this contest. On the Higher Heavens realm's side, there was also no suspense. Almost no one could compete with Huang Zhong from Shangxiao Divine Palace. The representative from the Higher Heavens realm was naturally him. Among each of the 9 realms, there were only a few people who could claim the top positions within the realm. After a short while, Jian Qingzhu asked, "Let us begin with the Central Emperor realm. I am willing to step forward and give it a try. Does anyone wish to challenge me for this spot?" As expected, no one said anything. "If that is the case, I will take a spot first." Seeing no one responding, Jian Qingzhu said, "Next, the Mountain Realm. Who is your representative? I wish to give it a try." At this moment, a silhouette walked out. Futian glanced over at the monk who had walked out. It was the monk who was meditating under the willow tree not long ago. His demeanor was stern. The light of Buddha circled around him. His temperament was extraordinary. "I am Divine Monk Guizong from Tianxian Temple." Every cultivator in the mountain realm knew of Divine Monk Guizong. Divine Monk Guizong's cultivation method was extremely bizarre. When he was young, his cultivation advanced at an extremely slow rate. He traveled all around preaching. However, once he meditated, he would do so for a few years and break through multiple planes consecutively. There were rumors that claimed that there were no signs of distinction of the Saint Plane on his body at all. He had broken through from below the Saint Plane, all the way to becoming a flawless Run Huang in one swoop. He had defied the common knowledge of many people. Some claimed that it was because he had accumulated his cultivation over many years. His state of mind was extraordinary, and he had superb dharma. Due to that, he only needed to deepen his way of Buddha, and he would naturally break through to higher planes and attain nirvana. Currently, it seemed that he could no longer be considered a monk at the Saint Plane. After becoming a Run Huang, he was a Buddha. When the cultivators of the mountain realm saw Guizong walk out, they gave up on the notion of competing. Prior to this, the members of the Shunxing clan had also joined the crowd. However, after seeing the monk Guizong, they could only curse internally. They did not want to offend this bald monk. He could easily exorcise anyone here. Emperor Star Realm? Jian Qingzhu continued asking. On the Emperor Star Realm side, Dou Zhao was initially eager to give it a try. However, Futian transmitted his thoughts over to him and asked, "Among those of the Emperor Star Realm, how high would you rank yourself in terms of ability?" "I would be first place," Dou Zhao said without any shred of humility. Futian was speechless. He felt that compared to Dou Zhao, he paled in comparison when it came to shamelessness. "I am the descendant of Fighting God. My will is only below that of sevenfold Fighting God. If it wasn't because I encountered the guy beside you, who else could defeat me?" Dou Zhao said, annoyed. He gave Yusheng a glance. Futian acknowledged the ability of Dou Zhao. In reality, in order to defeat Dou Zhao, Yusheng had used all his triumph cards. Hence, one could tell how domineering Dou Zhao was when he unleashed the will of sevenfold Fighting God. When Dou Zhao said he was ranked first in the Emperor Star Realm, he wasn't bluffing. Even if you are ranked first in the Emperor Star Realm, you will surely face challenges issued by those from the Central Emperor Realm when you step up. Can you fight against them? Futian asked. Dou Zhao looked at Futian and revealed a strange expression, asking, "Are you afraid that I might contend with you for the spot? Fine. Do as you please." Futian rolled his eyes at Dou Zhao. If the 9 representatives cracked the statues, they might indeed end up fighting against each other. Never mind. I am already quite satisfied with what I got on this trip. I will leave this opportunity for you. Dou Zhao did not volunteer himself. The 7th Slayer, who was now at the Runhuang Plain, represented the Emperor Star Realm. There was another Runhuang from the Emperor Star Realm, but his reputation was obviously not as good as that of the 7th Slayer, so he didn't volunteer himself either. As for those at the Saint Plane, when they saw that the 7th Slayer was now a Run Huang, they gave up too. After that, each realm decided on their representative. In the end, the cultivators of the Myriad Realm chose a Run Huang from the slaughtering world. He was also a top figure, who had broken through to the Run Huang Plain in God's Relic. Unsurprisingly, Huang Zhong of Shangxiao Divine Palace represented the higher heavens realm. Then, one by one, the Solar Realm, Shadow Realm, and Hidden Land Realm elected their representatives. All who were chosen were top existences. Naturally, Futian represented the Heavenly Mandate Realm. When other cultivators saw Futian emerge, and that no one had fought with him, the facial expressions of those who knew him changed. Those who had suffered losses at the hands of Yi Futian put on strange looks. There were also people who cast skeptical gazes at Yi Futian. For example, the cultivators of Shen clan were puzzled. It seemed like this inheritor of Sky River Great Elder was quite capable. He could actually convince everyone from the Heavenly Mandate Realm to support him. Was this the person who had traveled from the Heavenly Mandate Realm to the Tianhe Realm in order to learn under the Sky River Great Elder? Jian Qingzhu was not at all surprised. Yi Futian was the first person to reach here after opening the door of the relic. There was no doubt that the Heavenly Mandate Realm would choose him. The 9 representatives who had been elected were as follows: Central Emperor Realm, Jian Qingzhu of Tianshan Academy; Heavenly Mandate Realm, Yi Futian; Higher Heavens Realm, Huang Zhong of Shangxiao Divine Palace; Mountain Realm, Master Guizong of Tianxian Temple; Emperor Star Realm, the 7th Slayer of the Clan of the 7 Slayers; Myriad Realm, Qin Lin of Slaughtering World; Hidden Land Realm, Lian Juyo of the Clan of the God of Ghost; Solar Realm, Di Wu of Solar Divine Palace; Shadow Realm, Changxi of Yuwa Divine Palace. These 9 cultivators formed more or less the strongest lineup of the 9 realms. However, this 9-person lineup was only the initial arrangement. Next, people from any realm could eliminate them and take over their spots. After all this time, their target was not merely choosing one representative from each realm. They needed to form the strongest lineup of the 9 realms. Everyone, in the interest of time, if you intend to challenge any of these 9 cultivators, each force will only get one chance to do so, Jian Qingzhu spoke again. If multiple cultivators from each force competed in this elimination, it would take forever to decide on the lineup. Each force only had an opportunity. The winner would take the spot, and the loser would be eliminated. There was no second chance. Shen Hao was the first to take a step forward. Brilliant divine light enveloped him. He stared at the 7th Slayer, saying, "Since your divine wheel of the Great Path is flawed, you should not occupy a spot." The 7th Slayer glanced at Shen Hao. Murderous intent surged out from his pupils and stabbed towards his opponent. Buzz. A divine halo shone brightly on Shen Hao's body. His divine will could be vaguely seen. His gaze was sharp, piercing directly into the eyes of the 7th Slayer. He ignored the domineering murderous intent emanated by the 7th Slayer. The two of them exchanged blows from a distance. An alarming collision of the Great Path had actually taken place in the space between the two of them. Bang! An overbearing might of Ren Huang descended from the sky, intruding the body of the 7th Slayer. The halo of the divine wheel of the 7th Slayer was suppressed by the might of Ren Huang. Even though the murderous intent of the 7th Slayer was strong, and endless killing aura intended to burst forth, they were restrained and could only flow around his body, unable to break through. There are only 2 types of divine wheel, a perfect one or a flawed one. The two of them are worlds apart, let alone cultivators at the same plane. Even if you are a plane higher than me, I can still suppress you. Shen Hao spoke with the authority of heaven, as his might of Ren Huang continued to lash down on the body of the 7th Slayer. The latter let out a groan of pain, and he actually took a step backward. His murderous aura had experienced an absolute suppression. Yi Futian revealed a look of surprise when he saw this scene. The divine wheel of the 7th Slayer had encountered an absolute suppression. Some cultivators divided the divine wheels into 4 tiers. However, in the eyes of the top figures, there were only flawless divine wheels and flawed divine wheels. Shen Hao had forged a flawless divine wheel. He was ranked first among the younger generations of the Shen clan in the Central Emperor Realm. The experiences and resources he had were not something ordinary cultivators could replicate. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Even in the Shen clan, Shen Hao was the only one in his generation to have forged a flawless divine wheel. The might of Ren Huang dissipated. The halo on both of them disappeared. The 7th Slayer remained silent. In his first battle after he had become a Ren Huang, he was suppressed. His spot was seized by others. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1637 Xunyuan. Chapter 1637 Xunyuan Shun, how managed to suppress the seventh slayer and steal the spot of the Emperor Star Realm. The Central Emperor Realm now occupied 2 spots. However, this was also normal. After all, the Central Emperor Realm was the center of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Be it in terms of number of top forces, or the ability of their cultivators, the Central Emperor Realm was more superior than other realms. Shun clan was one of the most powerful forces in the Central Emperor Realm. Shun Hao was the strongest cultivator among this generation of cultivators in the Imperial Realm. He stood head and shoulders above the rest of the Shun clan members of the same generation. He had forged a flawless divine wheel of the Great Path. It was impossible for the seventh slayer to be able to stand against him in a battle. Moreover, this was just the beginning. After this, most likely other cultivators from the Central Emperor Realm would continue to seize other spots. Due to great distances between realms, the cultivators in the 9 realms actually knew very little about each other. They only recognized the top forces and the top figures. They wouldn't know much about the younger cultivators. This trip to God's Relic had gathered all of them together. Other than judging one's ability based on their divine wheel, another method was looking at their origins and which force they had come from. Everyone here more or less knew about the forces which stood at the peak in each realm. For instance, it was unlikely for one to not know about top forces, such as Tianshan Academy and Shun Clan. Another example would be the Divine Palace of the Higher Heavens Realm. It was also a renowned place for cultivating. In terms of ability and teachings, the Higher Heavens Realm would be ranked first. Solar Divine Palace of the Solar Realm and Yuwa Divine Palace of the Shadow Realm were both the strongest forces in their realms, respectively. The former focused on the teachings of the utmost Yang, while the later focused on the teachings of the utmost Yin. Their ways of teachings were also overpowering. Tianxian Temple was the holy land for Buddhists in the mountain realm. It was located on Buddha Mountain and was praised as the greatest temple in the mountain realm. Compared to these forces, although the position of Slaughtering World in the Myriad Realm, as well as the position of Clan of the God of Ghost in the Hidden Land Realm, was considered among the top forces, they were different from the forces mentioned before. They were not at the absolute peak of the pyramid, and were not as immovable. Thus, it was more likely for Qin Lin from Slaughtering World, as well as Lian Jiuyo from Clan of the God of Ghost to be chosen as targets. Aside from them, there was also Yi Futian from the Heavenly Mandate Realm. For many people, they thought that Yi Futian would be the easiest pushover. However, the members who previously traveled together with Jian Qingzhu and the others, as well as those who had battled against Yi Futian, such as Xiao Muyu from Xiao Clan, would not think so. That fellow was definitely not an easy target. At this moment, another silhouette walked out. When she emerged from the crowd, countless gazes landed on her person. A fairy-like aura swept over them. In reality, prior to this, many people had noticed her presence. This was because the woman had a stunning appearance. Changxi from Yuwa Divine Palace was already considered a stunning beauty. However, this woman was actually even more outstanding than Changxi. Her body emanated a fairy-like aura, as though there was a formless light that would cause others to feel ashamed of themselves at a glance. She was a female Renhuang. That was the reason she had such a supernatural temperament. Even the gazes of the top figures of the Central Emperor Realm revealed looks of appreciation when they looked at her. Emperor Nan inspired awe throughout the realm, and was a huge and legendary figure in the Central Emperor Realm. This woman was the only daughter of Emperor Nan. She was the princess of Nantian Divine Kingdom, Nan Luoshan. Emperor Nan's wife's family name was Luo, so he named his daughter Luoshan. This was the origin of Nan Luoshan's name. Jian Qingzhu was also looking at Nan Luoshan. This princess of Nantian Divine Kingdom would certainly claim a spot. When Nan Luoshan walked out, a divine light radiated from inside her body. Her divine will could faintly be seen. Unparalleled divine light enveloped the heavens and the earth. At this moment, it was as though she was a true goddess that could not be defiled. Flawless, Yi Futian exclaimed internally when he sensed her divine wheel of the Great Path. Based on what he knew, perfect divine wheels were extremely rare. Even among proud sons of heaven, they were rarely seen. However, just today, he had encountered several, one after another. It even made him feel as though flawless divine wheels were not rare at all, and could be found everywhere. What do you think of this woman? Dou Zhao asked through transmitting his thoughts with a smile when he saw Yi Futian's look. Who is she? Yi Futian asked. Dou Zhao revealed a bizarre look. This fellow truly knew nothing about the Central Emperor realm. She is Emperor Nan's only daughter, Nan Luotian, the princess of Nantian Divine Kingdom. Based on what my old man said, Emperor Nan's ability can be ranked among the forefront of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Dou Zhao transmitted his thoughts. Yi Futian blinked. Was this woman from such an incredible background? It seemed that they were a force that could compare with Shen clan. What are you scheming? Dou Zhao muttered when he saw Yi Futian's eyes shining. It was possible that this shameless fellow was planning something. Am I that kind of person? Yi Futian speechlessly looked at Dou Zhao. What kind of person did Dou Zhao imagine him to be? I haven't said anything. And you have already understood what I wanted to ask you on your own? Dou Zhao said in surprise. Yi Futian felt accused. I understand. The daughter of Emperor Nan is the dream companion of countless monstrous figures in the Central Emperor realm. She is definitely the first choice of many. Dou Zhao explained with a smirk. There is not much hope for you. Take a look at what sort of background Jian Qingzhu and Shen Hao come from. It is not that the other top forces of the Central Emperor realm are not powerful. It's just that the strongest cultivators of those top forces are coincidentally not at the same plane. So the other top forces stand out less. Yi Futian naturally understood that encountering flawless Runhuang required some luck as well. However, he had met enough top figures this time around. The two of you, what are you whispering? A mutter sounded from beside Yi Futian. Yi Futian glanced at Xia Qingyuan, who was standing beside him. Nothing, he said. This maiden is really beautiful, Xia Qingyuan said while looking at Nan Luotian. Even as a girl, Xia Qingyuan was amazed by the beauty of Nan Luotian. Yi Futian nodded his head in agreement. Xia Qingyuan turned to look at him. He truly wasn't subtle about it. Nan Luotian's gaze looked towards Lian Juyo of the Hidden Land Realms clan of the God of Ghost. She said, Do we need to fight for the spot? Lian Juyo felt the pressure coming from the other party's divine wheel. He was speechless. A flawless divine wheel. He had long heard his seniors mention this before. A flawless divine wheel had an overwhelming advantage against other divine wheels that could not be overcome. However, even though Lian Juyo had spent such a huge effort to come here to God's Relic in order to break through to the Runhuang Plain via a fateful encounter, he still fell short and could not succeed. He naturally knew who the woman opposite him was. There were few women in the 9 realms who had such an appearance and temperament. This daughter of Emperor Nan had also reached the Runhuang Plain. Due to her father's presence as well as her absolute beauty, it was easy for people to forget about her astonishing talent. Since Princess wants this spot, you may have it, Lian Juyo responded. He gave his spot to Nan Luotian right away. Of course, even if the two of them battled, he had no hope of securing his spot. He might as well reserve his energy for later. It was just that he had not expected that Nan Luotian would pick him as a target. Now the spot of the Hidden Land realm had been snatched away. The Central Emperor realm had claimed 3 spots as of now. Jian Qingzhu, just now you mentioned that each force could only challenge once. The winner will stay while the loser will be eliminated. Shen Hao suddenly said. However, since we are selecting the best 9 people to crack the statues, the forces who are capable should be able to claim more than one spot. Don't you think so? Jian Qingzhu looked at Shen Hao inquiring. What do you mean by that? I think if a force is capable, its cultivators should claim more spots. Here power is law. There is no need for us to take care of the weak, Shen Hao explained. After pondering for a moment, Jian Qingzhu looked at the crowd, asking, Shen Hao's words are not wrong. What do all of you think? All of them wanted to crack the statues. Naturally, they should choose the strongest cultivators to do so. If any force could provide more than one powerful cultivator to take on the task, by right, it shouldn't be a problem. Everyone revealed shocked expressions when they heard Shen Hao's suggestion. The cultivators of Shun clan did not attempt to mask their greed at all. They were not satisfied with having only one representative. I don't mind, Nan Luoshan said nonchalantly. Apart from Shun Hao, she did not see the others from the Shun clan as worthy of being threats. No one opposed this suggestion. After all, most of them were not involved in this matter. The only people who were affected by this suggestion were the few who were elected just now. Clearly, nobody would raise any objection and offend Shun clan. In that case, feel free to do as you please. Jian Qingzhu said nothing more. In his opinion, it was not an easy feat for Shun clan to snatch another spot on top of defending their current spot. Shin Yuan, you should go, Shin Hao said to a youth beside him. The cultivator from Shun clan took a step forward. The aura on his body was astonishing. Yi Futian had seen this person before. Back then in the Tianhe realm, he was together with Shen Yao. Shen Yuan most likely stepped forward because of Yi Futian. As expected, Yi Futian saw Shen Yuan's gaze land on him. There was a natural look of arrogance in Shen Yuan's gaze. It was as though he was someone who stood in the heavens above and was looking down on the people below. Shun clan had a long history. They were established in the Central Emperor realm and had been powerful and prosperous for generation after generation. Even the top forces of the Heavenly Mandate realm were no different from aboriginals in the eyes of the core members of Shun clan. In their opinion, the top forces of the Heavenly Mandate realm were merely from a slightly better background from the rest. They only considered a few of the large top forces in the Central Emperor realm to be worthy of notice. As a junior, Shen Yuan did not know much about the incidents back then. However, he had also heard the legend of this peerless woman of Shun clan. He did not understand why she had married Sky River Great Elder. With their Shun clan's proud bloodline, she had married a person beneath her status and ended up being betrayed by him. In Shen Yuan's eyes, the actions of the Sky River Great Elder were a betrayal towards the Shun clan. Now the Shun clan had captured Qi Xiangang. They did not care much about this inheritor of Sky River Great Elder and had allowed him to live. However, Shen Yuan still walked out, wanting to walk all over Yi Futian. He wanted to do so for no other reason than the pride of their Shun clan. He would not allow their name to be stained. Some cultivators of Shun clan wanted to avoid humiliating the Sky River Great Elder. But Shen Yuan had no such concern. He even did not understand why the senior figures of the clan still bore some respect towards Sky River Great Elder. Hence, Shen Yuan's gaze turned towards Yi Futian. His cultivation was at the peak of the Saint Plain. Aside from wanting to seize a spot, he himself had come for Yi Futian. I am Shen Yuan from the Shun clan. Shen Yuan's tone was slightly arrogant. His eyes revealed a haughty look. Shen Yuan seemed to be reminding Yi Futian that he was from the Shun clan. Yi Futian naturally could sense the arrogance coming from Shen Yuan's gaze. Yi Futian's expression was calm, without a trace of being affected by Shen Yuan. I am Yi Futian, disciple of Sky River Great Elder, Yi Futian said. He added another line internally. I am Yi Futian, disciple of Qi Xiangang. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1638, Can you withstand a strike from my sword? Chapter 1638, Can you withstand a strike from my sword? The corner of Shen Yuan's mouth twitched to reveal a mocking smile. Was he the disciple of Sky River Great Elder? In the past, Sky River Great Elder betrayed the Shun clan, and all 3,000 of his disciples were eradicated. Now that Sky River Great Elder was in his twilight years, he had taken in another inheritor. Was he plotting on making a difference? Shen Yuan strode towards the ancient road of the Great Path. Clearly, he intended to fight Yi Futian under the authority of the emperor. Under the pressure of a huge might, their battle would be a clear-cut fight. It would be difficult for them to even dodge each other's attack. They could only battle head-on. Shen Yuan had absolute confidence. He would crush Yi Futian with the most decisive method. Similarly, Yi Futian walked forward and entered the ancient road. The might emanated by the heavenly palace enveloped both of them. However, both of them appeared unconcerned and continued to advance. In the past, in order to find Feishue, the Shun clan launched a destructive war. They went to the extent of obliterating the Tianhe realm, resulting in the death of countless people. The 3,000 disciples of Sky River Great Elder were almost wiped out. If their master had stayed in the Tianhe realm to cultivate quietly, all of them would have had a bright future. However, everything had changed due to that war. Based on this instance, one could discern how overbearing the Shun clan was. Anyone who disobeyed the Shun clan would be killed. Shen Hao turned his gaze towards Shen Yuan. Among the Shun clan, although Shen Yuan's talent was not on par with his, he was also an extremely extraordinary figure among the juniors. Shen Yuan had trained and developed together with Shen Hao. His ability was very powerful. Now that Shen Hao had reached the Renhuang Plain, if he could bring Shen Yuan along to pass these statues, there might be a chance for a fateful encounter for Shen Yuan. As for Yi Futian, Shen Hao did not care much about him. What Shen Yuan wanted to do to Yi Futian was of no consequence. Among the ancient path, two silhouettes came to a stop. Under the pressure of the might of the great path, powerful might of the way burst forth from their figures. They were extremely frightening. The cultivators of various forces turned their gaze toward the two silhouettes. Some people sympathized with Yi Futian. After all, from their point of view, Yi Futian was a pushover that was destined to be taken down. Even if Shen Yuan had not made his move, others would have done so. However, there were some people who did not see it as such. Yuan Hong from the Yuanyang clan was also from the Central Emperor realm. Prior to this, he had known that there was certainly a grudge between Yi Futian and Shen clan. However, he had not imagined that the disciples of Shen clan would directly come looking for Yi Futian. Although Shen Yuan was not as famous as Shen Hao, he was also a monstrous figure of Shen clan. His ability was extremely powerful. However, Yuan Hong still thought that Yi Futian had the upper hand in this battle. After all, the Renhuang of martial god clan Wu Meng had not returned alive after leaving with Yi Futian and Yu Sheng. In the battles that followed, no one could withstand a strike from Yi Futian's spear. Such combat ability was already at the true limits of the Saint Path. Yuan Hong suddenly revealed a bizarre expression. He still believed that Yi Futian would win this battle. However, if Yi Futian defeated Shen Yuan, how would the members of Shen clan take it? Xiao Muyu from Xiao clan stared at the battlefield. Up to this day, she was still brooding over the fact that Yi Futian had plundered the lotus and gifted it to Xiaoqing Yuan. Now that Shen Yuan had made his move, it would be best if Shen Yuan could crush this fellow and help her vent her frustration. The crowd all had their own thoughts. They did not know whether Yi Futian from the Heavenly Mandate realm could hold on to his spot. If he could not, it was possible that the Central Emperor realm would dominate with 4 spots. Will this be a battle with ritual implements or a battle with only our own ability? Yi Futian asked as he stood across from Shen Yuan. Since the very beginning, his gaze had been very calm. His voice was also indifferent, his mind as steady as still water. Up to you, Shen Yuan replied as he looked at Yi Futian. Regardless of which type of battle it was, the end result would still be the same. Alright. Yi Futian did not pretend to be polite. He nodded and said, "Then, let's not rely on external powers and battle it out with our own abilities." Shen Yuan laughed sinisterly. It seemed that Yi Futian also knew that Shen Yuan was from the Shen clan, and that the Shen clan's ritual implements would certainly be more powerful, and thus had deliberately said so. If Shen Yuan had known that Yi Futian had managed to seize a treasure trove not long ago, would he still have believed that he had an advantage in terms of ritual implements? Let alone the mountain of treasures. Even the spear that Yi Futian was using was already an extraordinary divine weapon. Rumble! A dazzling golden aura burst forth from Shen Yuan's body. Even under the authority of the Great Path, he still stood firmly, and his body was bathed in the brilliant light. A terrifying might of the Great Path volleyed and thundered. A beam of divine light lit up on his glabella, as though it was a pair of divine eyes. It shot directly on Yi Futian. For a moment, Yi Futian felt that his spiritual soul was under the control of the gaze of his opponent. He saw illusions in his eyes. It was as though he was not facing Shen Yuan, but a deity. Yi Futian had experienced this kind of power before. It was an innate talent possessed by Shen clan. In the past, when Shen Yao led the members of Shen clan to intrude the Tianhe realm, Shen Yao had attempted this method on Yi Futian. He intended to pry into Yi Futian's memories for any secrets inside. Now this skill was once again used by Shen Yuan, divine eyes of Shen clan. The cultivators of the Central Emperor realm were well aware of the tyranny of Shen clan. The pair of divine eyes was enough to drive anyone into endless despair. Bang! Shen Yuan took a step forward, and his great path fulminated. Endless golden lights surrounded his body. His cold voice sounded, "Can you withstand a stare from my eyes?" His stare pressured the spiritual soul of Yi Futian. Yi Futian felt as though a deity was walking towards him. The deity was undefeatable. Yi Futian's eyes also changed. His pitch-black eyes seemed to transform into deep, endless darkness. Faintly, a frightening spiritual storm seemed to be contained within them. The light within the storm seemed to be able to see through nothingness. They directly pierced through the power of the divine eyes and looked towards Shen Yuan. "What's so special about your eyes?" Yi Futian calmly said as he also took a step forward. This caused Shen Yuan to frown slightly. Yi Futian had actually ignored the effect of his eyes. The light from his glabella became even more dazzling. It kept surging into Yi Futian's mind, attempting to trap Yi Futian within his divine eyes. However, Shen Yuan only saw an endless storm. He could not locate Yi Futian's spiritual soul. "What are you looking for?" A silhouette emerged from the deep and endless storm abyss. It was the silhouette of Yi Futian. He directly transmitted a thought into Shen Yuan's mind. The two of them were conversing with their wills. Shen Yuan's will, which had transformed into a deity-like illusory figure, approached Yi Futian, intending to reveal Yi Futian's spiritual soul. However, the storm retaliated. It transformed into countless swords made of will, and they swept out towards Shen Yuan. The storm flooded everything, including the deity-like illusory figure. An alarming sword will shot out from Yi Futian's eyes. It penetrated the divine eyes of Shen Yuan. A terrifying imprint appeared on Shen Yuan's glabella. His head shook, and the light in between his brows dissipated. His divine eyes had been sealed. "That's all you got?" Yi Futian said as he looked at Shen Yuan. The facial expression of Shen Yuan changed slightly. The few words seemed to be mocking him. "That's all he got?" From behind Shen Yuan, a horrifying pair of golden divine eyes appeared. Shen Yuan's pupils turned exceptionally radiant as well. Under the gaze of his pupils, all the will in the heavens and earth seemed to have materialized. What was even more frightening was the golden light that burned brightly on Shen Yuan's body. Similar to the flame of God, it hurt the eyes of those who looked at it. It even injured their spiritual souls. Suddenly, myriads of golden lights beamed from his body, shooting straight towards Yi Futian. These divine lights actually caused people to feel a strong sense of danger. It was as though a deity was emanating its halo. The lights could pierce through one's body. They could even threaten one's spiritual soul. Celestial light shone from Yi Futian's figure. A faint celestial soul seemed to appear behind him. His opponent could constantly attack the spiritual soul of a person. However, Yi Futian was also proficient in a similar ability. It was a mystical way of the celestial gate of vast heaven, celestial soul attraction. Innumerable sword will suddenly appeared all around his body. Celestial soul attraction merged into the sword will while it collided with the divine lights. Endless brilliant divine lights plummeted. They suppressed Yi Futian's sword will and intruded his body continuously. Shen Yuan was staring at Yi Futian. His gaze was extremely frightening. His body emanated a divine halo that could counter all law powers. So domineering. Many spectators of the battle exclaimed internally. These divine lights seemed to be able to suppress the way of others. The divine lights invaded Yi Futian's body unceasingly. Yi Futian glanced at his opponent. As expected of Shen clan, the top force that stood at the peak of the Central Emperor realm. They naturally had extraordinary talents and had received remarkable teachings. It was just that this battle had a special meaning for Yi Futian. Hence, no matter how powerful Shen Yuan was, the end result was the same. Brilliant divine light radiated. Ancient characters floated around Yi Futian's body. It was the deed of thorough comprehension. At this moment, his body had become a divine furnace of the great path. The ancient characters of Qian, Kuan, Li, and Qin floated in mid-air, forming halos of great path that blocked the golden divine halo from invading his body. As for inside his body, the spirit of the world tree swayed. It merged with every part of his body. At this moment, majestic will within his body was frenziedly being released. In his blood vessels, skeleton, organs, and limbs, will furiously circulated. As he howled, he entered the divine furnace of the great path. The power of the great path in this place also trembled. It seemingly also surged into Yi Futian's body, becoming a part of the divine furnace of the great path. The ancient characters that circled the heavens and the earth suddenly transformed into swords. They emanated astonishing sword will. Countless sword chi was created in the surroundings, rivaling the divine halo that shot out from Xin Yuan's body. Rumble! The divine furnace, transformed by the body of Yi Futian, roared and churned. Under the light shroud of the ancient characters, the divine furnace extracted the great path of all things. Countless divine swords buzzed, stirring up a destructive storm in the space. The divine swords tore the space apart. The facial expression of Shen Yuan changed slightly. The halo around his body shone even more brilliantly, transforming into layer upon layer of golden divine walls. The divine walls would block all attacks. A sword appeared gradually from Yi Futian's body. It was a sword forged using the way by the divine furnace of the great path. Countless divine swords hummed as though musical tones were being played in the space. Can you withstand a strike from my sword? Yi Futian's gaze swept towards Shen Yuan. Once he said this, his sword struck out. The divine sound of great path lingered and followed the sword. Around it, countless divine swords merged into one. In the instant before the sword slashed forward, they merged into the divine sword. Right now, there was only one sword on the battlefield. Shen Yuan's expression drastically changed. Innumerable divine walls flickering with golden runes appeared in front of him. When the sword closed in on him, one by one, the golden divine walls were blasted into pieces. Bang! There was a huge rumble. Shen Yuan sacrificed a ritual implement to block the attack. However, his body was still sent flying outwards. At the same time, the pressure of the great path in this space came pressing down on him. He let out a low grunt. His body slumped down, half kneeling on the ground. His expression was pale. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1639 The Nine Representatives. Chapter 1639 The Nine Representatives. Under the might of the great path, the ancient road was dead silent. Countless gazes focused on Shen Yuan and the white-haired silhouette. The former was half kneeling on the ground while the latter stood opposite him, looking indifferent. The situation now formed a strong contrast as compared to that of before. Before the battle, Shen Yuan was arrogant. In comparison, Yi Futian had remained calm throughout. However, right now, Shen Yuan's once proud figure was kneeling on the ground. A strike from Yi Futian's sword. Could Shen Yuan withstand a strike from his sword? Shen Yuan, a monstrous figure of Shen clan, did not manage to withstand a strike from Yi Futian's sword. This outcome caused many people to reveal strange expressions. Was Yi Futian really as easy a pushover as they had thought? Defeating a talented figure of Shen clan with a strike, how many cultivators in the Nine Realms could do so? Aside from those few monstrous figures at the peak of their respective realms, there were definitely not many others who could do so. Right now, Shen Yuan was as humiliated as he was arrogant prior to their battle. The clothes on Shen Hao's body fluttered, even though there was no wind. Faint aura emanated from his body. His gaze was staring straight ahead at the battlefield. Clearly, he had not anticipated such an ending to their battle. Yi Futian was the last inheritor of Sky River Great Elder. Sky River Great Elder had sent him into God's relic. It seemed that Shen Yuan had grossly underestimated the inheritor that Sky River Great Elder had found. Yi Futian represented the Heavenly Mandate realm. Prior to their battle, it seemed that no one had objected to him being the representative. That meant that Yi Futian had quite a reputation in the heavenly mandate realm. Xiao Muyu from Xiao clan was staring intently over in their direction. Shen Yuan had lost. Although she knew that Yi Futian was very strong, she had not expected him to be so powerful. He had achieved this victory with a domineering strength. Deed of thorough comprehension, Jian Qingzhu from Tianshan Academy mumbled. As the inheritor of Sky River Great Elder, when challenged by Shen Yuan from the Shen clan, Yi Futian must have intentionally revealed his deed of thorough comprehension. He must have done so to prove something. However, the end result of this battle was also within expectations. After all, Yi Futian was the same as Jian Qingzhu. Both of them had opened the door of the relic. Of course, Shen Yuan himself also understood why Yi Futian had released his deed of thorough comprehension. This was to inform all that Shen Yuan, a monstrous figure of Shen clan, had lost to the inheritor of Sky River Great Elder. Do you want to try my sword again? Yi Futian asked as he looked at Shen Yuan, who was half kneeling on the ground. Yi Futian's voice caused many people to reveal bizarre expressions. This person was truly going too far. He had no intention of avoiding humiliating Shen Yuan. However, this was also normal. Shen Yuan had challenged Yi Futian and had stood before him with an extremely haughty attitude. Now, why would Yi Futian spare him from any embarrassment? When Shen Yuan heard what Yi Futian said, his heart twitched inside. He gradually stood up and looked at the silhouette opposite him. Did he still want to try Yi Futian's sword again? Should he try, or should he not try? If he tried to face the sword, what would happen if the end result was the same? If he did not try to face Yi Futian's sword, it would be such an embarrassment. The divine light on his body shone. His eyes revealed a look of dissatisfaction. Frightening light shot out of those eyes. Even if he took another hit from that sword, what could possibly happen to him? He was not prepared when the sword came down just now. He would not repeat the same mistake. Shen Yuan. At this moment, a voice suddenly called out. Shen Yuan turned around and looked in the direction of Shen clan. Shen Hao was speaking, saying, "Since you have been defeated, step down." A look of discontentment flashed past in Shen Yuan's eyes. Nevertheless, he also knew that he had already failed. He still dragged his feet back to where Shen clan stood. From behind, his silhouette looked kind of bleak. Yi Futian looked towards the Shen clan and saw that Shen Hao's gaze was directed at him. This time, Sky River Great Elder had found an impressive inheritor. Was Yi Futian the hope of Sky River Great Elder's twilight years? It still could not change anything. Yi Futian naturally understood the meaning behind Shen Hao's gaze. Yi Futian smiled. The proud Shen clan, that stood at the peak of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, had many powerful cultivators in their clan. They had many more monstrous figures aside from Shen Yuan and the others. This was only the strength of the younger generation of the clan. The backbone of the Shen clan was built on the Renhuangs that were already at the peak. How could Yi Futian, who was still at the Saint Plain, compare to these Renhuangs? Back in the day, Sky River Great Elder and his 3,000 disciples were eradicated with just a word by the Shen clan. In the Shen clan's search for divine items, they even eradicated an entire realm. What could Yi Futian amount to? Even if his talent was extraordinary, that was all there was to him. Why would Shen clan be concerned about him? Especially Shen Hao, who was a candidate for the successor of the Shen clan. Once he became the person at the helm of Shen clan, he would be a truly major existence in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. With a mere thought, he could control the lives and deaths of countless people. Yi Futian walked out of the ancient road and returned to his position. After witnessing this battle, those who wanted his spot would most likely need to think it over. Defeating Shen Yuan would have saved him a lot of trouble. As expected, no one else came out seeking Yi Futian. Instead, they challenged another person, Qin Lin, who was from the top force of the Myriad Realm, Slaughtering World. However, a few challengers lost consecutively at the hands of Qin Lin. His slaughtering divine heart was extremely frightening. It directly activated the slaughtering way to the limits. The divine slaughtering matrix was terrifying. There was a person who was even directly executed by Qin Lin on the spot. This made many people realize that the remaining 9 representatives were all tough targets. Qin Lin from Slaughtering World could be the next outstanding personage of the Myriad Realm. His combat ability was exceptional, on par with that of those top figures of the Imperial Realm. There were other people who challenged Di Wu of Solar Divine Palace, as well Changxi of Yuehua Divine Palace, and similarly lost. These two personages of the top forces of the Solar Realm and Shadow Realm had abilities that lived up to the crowd's expectation. They were extremely powerful. After a round of battles, aside from Shen Hao and Nan Luoshan at the very start, no one actually managed to seize another spot. It seemed that it would be very difficult to want a spot now. In the end, after one last battle, no one else made a move. It was still the same 9 representatives. When Jian Qingzhu saw this, he said, "We chose 9 representatives, so that we could crack these ancient road statues in one go. No one knows what will happen after this yet. Let's stop our exchanges here. After all, no one knows when the doors of God's relic will close shut. We do not necessarily have a lot of time." The crowd did not say any more. They seemed to have acknowledged his words, that it was too difficult to seize a spot, and that they might as well sit back and wait, and see how the 9 representatives cracked the statues. If the 9 representatives succeeded, there was indeed no one who knew what would happen after. Seeing that no one objected, Jian Qingzhu's gaze swept across the crowd as he said, "If that is the case, let us begin." As he said this, he walked forwards. The other 8 representatives also advanced, heading towards the ancient road. Very soon, 9 silhouettes appeared at the same time on the ancient road. They looked majestic. Shen Hao from Shun Clan replaced the 7th Slayer of Clan of the 7 Slayers, while Nan Luoshan of Nantian Divine Kingdom seized the spot of Lian Juyo from Clan of the God of Ghost. Apart from that, the cultivators in the lineup remain the same. Each person will take on a statue. "We must succeed," Jian Qingzhu said. After he finished giving the order, he took the lead and walked towards one of the statues in the middle. At the ancient road, the might from the heavenly palace enveloped the 9 representatives. All of them advanced towards their targets with resolved looks in their eyes. These 9 people were the most powerful cultivators among those from the 9 realms, who were currently in God's relic. If they couldn't crack the statues, the others would have even slimmer chances of doing so. Futian moved forward along the ancient road. Unbeknownst whether it was coincidental or intentional, Shen Hao ended up right beside him. Neither of them spared a glance at each other. Step by step, they strode forward. The might of the great path emanated from the heavenly palace became stronger. The statues were located at different spots. Hence, some of them had arrived at a statue, while some of them were still moving towards their targets. Nobody knew the strength of these 9 statues, so it was meaningless for them to be picky. When Futian approached a statue near him, a terrifying will swept out towards him. The great path fulminated and flooded the space. In an instant, he was drowned in the illusions of the great path. Futian was not alone. The other 8 representatives encountered the same situation as well. The 9 representatives came face to face with the 9 statues. All of them were surrounded by an alarming aura of the great path. Moreover, the illusions that they experienced were different. The space that Futian was in seemed to be a primeval battlefield. He was no longer standing in front of the statue. Instead, he found himself in the middle of the primeval battlefield. His gazes turned extremely sharp. He intended to see through the illusions. However, he was still trapped in this space, unable to decipher anything. Clearly, it was impossible to decipher the secret of the statue with this method. Such a strong will. Futian exclaimed internally. Everything before his eyes was so real. It was as though he had arrived in another domain. On the battlefield, many armored soldiers who guarded the heavenly palace appeared. They wore dazzling silver armors and emanated an intense murderous aura. They dashed towards Futian. Futian was very aware of what he was up against. The master of the statues might have fallen eons ago, but there were still remnants of his will lingering here. The remnants of his will felt so real. No matter how high Futian's plane was, he was still affected by it. Rumble. Frightening light burst forth from Futian's body. The will of the great path howled. The shadows of armored soldiers directly passed through his body. They were not real existences. However, even though they were the ethereal power of will, They still made Yi Futian feel as though there was an ancient suffocating pressure acting on him. Many people had tried before, but they could not withstand the pressure and ended up collapsing. In this place, success was unrelated to one's plane. Of course, it was also possible that cultivators at the Runhuang Plain had stronger wills. Yi Futian's expression changed slightly. Another shadow of an armored soldier charged towards him. A very real murderous fighting will oozed forth. It invaded his body, as though it wanted to kill him off. He attempted to release some aura to block the attack, but his efforts were in vain. The murderous intent still penetrated through him. Yi Futian had never felt this way before. He looked ahead. He felt as though the statue was alive. He could actually sense that the statue was moving, and a pair of eyes were staring at him. With a glance from the pair of eyes, the majestic might of the army troops enveloped his body. At the same time, war drums sounded. The beating of the drums reverberated in the space. Dong! With a loud thud, Yi Futian felt his spiritual soul tremble suddenly. His heart was beating fast while his breathing came to a halt. He felt terribly sick. He raised his head. His gaze was piercing. No wonder everyone before this had failed the mission. Prior to them, there were many monstrous figures who had attempted this task, yet they had all failed. Hence, Jian Qingzhu had come up with the idea of having the 9 strongest representatives attacking simultaneously. Right now, beside them, countless cultivators of the 9 realms were spectating the battle. They saw illusions everywhere. The 9 top figures were situated in 9 different environments, but they were all experiencing tremendous pressure. Even those at the pinnacle, like Jian Qingzhu, Shen Hao, and Nan Luoshan were not excluded. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1640 Giving Up. Chapter 1640, Giving Up. Who could crack the will of a statue first? The crowd exclaimed internally. The 9 representatives all did not disappoint. They all displayed extremely powerful abilities as they battled the wills of the statues within the frightening illusion. After all, they were exceptional figures chosen by the cultivators of the 9 realms. They were personages at the peak of the 9 realms. People were most attracted to the trio from the Central Emperor realm, Jian Qingzhu, Shen Hao, and Nan Luoshan. With their origins and their talents, they were destined to receive more attention than the others. Of course, the other representatives were not weak too. Right now, Master Guizong from Tianxian Temple at Buddha Mountain of the Mountain Realm transformed into a golden Buddha. He released beams of golden light. He was a true Buddha. Anyone who became a Runhuang would be crowned as a Buddha at the Mountain Realm. The golden Buddha put his palms together, and his demeanor was solemn. The halo of Buddha shone for miles. He remained steadfast when he was attacked by the powerful will. Diwu of Solar Divine Palace transformed into God of Sun, shining down light on the world. A golden raven, the divine bird of the sun, circled over his head. It was enchanting. On the contrary, a cold moon appeared behind Changxi of Yuwa Divine Palace. The space around her turned into night. Both Changxi and Diwu could alter nature. Even Qin Lin, who was the most overlooked, stepped onto the divine slaughtering matrix, and was slaughtering all in sight. It seemed that no human nor could shake his slaughtering divine heart. Compared to these cultivators, Yi Futian's area was the calmest. Although there was also light shining from his body, it was not as dazzling and eye-catching as that of the others. Right now, on this frightening battlefield, countless armored soldiers were swarming towards him. The sound of war drums thundered, attempting to shatter his spiritual soul. He looked forward while guarding his mind. The statue seemed to have completely come alive. It was like a divine general on a battlefield. When it glanced at him, countless war drums thundered at the same time. The innumerable armored soldiers roared like a tide, swallowing everything in the path. In this illusion, Yi Futian felt that he was minuscule. His spiritual soul was constantly trembling. His will was shaking, and even his body quivered slightly. It was as though he was about to collapse from the attack of the will. When the spiritual will and way of cultivators at the Runhuang Plain combined, They could forge a domain of the Great Path with just a single thought. The master of this statue must have been a peak existence of the Runhuang Plain when he was still alive. After he died, even his remnant will become a domain of Wei. Yi Futian thought to himself. He released the might of his deed of thorough comprehension. A celestial soul appeared behind him, and he could detect all within this space. Within Yi Futian's body, the branches of the world tree extended to every part of his body. It was as though his body had become a divine tree that was rooted firmly in the ground. An unparalleled, majestic way of life enveloped his figure, causing his aura to grow even more powerful. His powerful life force swelled to its extreme. His spiritual will also became stronger and sturdier, seemingly becoming indestructible. Yi Futian sat cross-legged. He actually sat down in the middle of the ancient road. His eyes were closed. He allowed the sound of war drums to attack his spiritual soul, and let the monstrous will sweep over his figure. Even though his body trembled and his spiritual soul shook, he still remained firmly rooted to his spot. Will enveloped every inch of his body. What is he doing? Some people revealed bizarre looks when they saw what Yi Futian was doing. He actually sat down. It was as though he was meditating and cultivating in the midst of that frightening will. Due to the fact that Yi Futian was acting differently from the other 8 representatives, many people were looking at him. Shen Yuan's gaze was also fixed on Yi Futian. Was he having difficulty standing against the will of the statue? The will of the statue will not disappear on its own. How long can he withstand the will by doing this? Someone asked. Wasn't doing so the same as waiting to die? How could he crack the will of the statue in this manner? The other 8 representatives were all withstanding the will of the statue. They were not just withstanding it, but they were also seeking the method of cracking the statues. They were searching for ways to defeat the will of the statue and crack the statue. Only by doing this could they make it past this ancient road and head to the sky stairwell that led up to the heavenly palace. At this moment, from inside the body of Yi Futian, who was sitting cross-legged, a formless will swept out. There was actually a faint sound of a guqin playing. This caused many people to reveal strange expressions. This is flesh becoming Wei. His way is that of rhythmic sorcery. Someone questioned. Before this, when Yi Futian and Shen Yuan were battling each other, Yi Futian had not displayed such an ability. Flesh becoming Wei preserved the Wei in the body of the cultivator, allowing the cultivator to resonate with the world. Since the sound of guqin could be heard, it meant that Yi Futian had merged rhythmic sorcery into his body of the Great Path. Rhythmic sorcery started playing amidst the howling illusion. A terrifying sword will accompany the music. Sword will, and the music merged harmoniously. When the music of rhythmic sorcery collided with the beating of the war drums, it formed a complex symphony. On the battlefield, the sounds of guqin and war drums competed with each other, revealing murderous intent. The brilliance of the Great Path gradually lit up around Yi Futian, subtly resonating with the heavens and earth. Is he cultivating? Xiao Muyu had been paying attention to Yi Futian all this while. This fellow left a very deep impression on her. He had snatched her divine lotus and given it to another girl. Moreover, he shamelessly declared that he wanted to be the son-in-law of the Xiao clan. Hence, among all representatives, she was most curious about Yi Futian and was very attentive towards him. Right now, when she saw how Yi Futian handled the illusion, she had a feeling that Yi Futian was utilizing the illusion to comprehend the Great Path. He was meditating. Out of the 9 selected representatives, almost all of them were Renhuangs. Only Yi Futian and Qin Lin were at the peak of the Saint Plain. The rest had found their own fateful encounters of the Great Path in this god's relic, and had broken through to the Runhuang Plain. Originally, Xiao Muyu could have such an opportunity too. If she had gotten the lotus, she would have had a high chance of breaking through to the Runhuang Plain. In the end, what happened had indeed proven that the lotus was even more extraordinary than what she had imagined it to be. However, there was no use in asking what if. The lotus had been snatched by Yi Futian, and the girl beside him had used the lotus to advance to the next plane. Unfortunately, she did not use it to become a Renhuang. She was practically wasting a rare item. So now, was Yi Futian meditating amidst this illusion, in order to comprehend the will and break the shackles between planes? Perhaps he is using his own way to defend against the invading will. A cultivator of Xiao clan who stood beside Xiao Muyu said. Meditating under such circumstances was indeed too daring. Was Yi Futian not worried about his body of the great path shattering, and his spiritual soul being severely injured if he made a slight mistake? He was under the domineering might of the great path. The rhythmic sorcery of the great path surged out, attempting to control the battlefield. A Guqin appeared in front of Yi Futian. His eyes were still closed, but his fingers were placed on the strings. He played without looking. The sound of Guqin echoed in the battlefield, resonating with the great path, and his body of the great path. What song is this? As soon as the crowd heard the song, someone sensed that this song was remarkable and asked about it. It is the song of the lost divine from Taishian Mountain. A cultivator of the higher heavens realm answered. Lord Taishian. Some people revealed looks of surprise. Lord Taishian from Taishian Mountain of the higher heavens realm was proficient in rhythmic sorcery. He had acquired the song of the lost divine during a fateful encounter. Rumor has it that Lord Taishian did not have exceptional talent. Initially, it would have been hard for him to achieve his current plane, especially in terms of breaking the shackles between planes. All his current achievements were, however, due to the song of the lost divine. Is Yi Futian a cultivator of the Tianhe realm, or a cultivator of the heavenly mandate realm? Why is he suddenly related to Lord Taishian? Someone asked quizzically. Yi Futian had introduced himself as a disciple of Sky River Great Elder, yet he represented the heavenly mandate realm. Now he showed off the song of the lost divine that he had learned from Lord Taishian. This man is from the heavenly mandate realm. He used to cultivate in the celestial gate of vast heaven, of the heavenly mandate realm. After that, he escaped to the higher heavens realm, and studied in Taishian Mountain. Gai Shishir of Golden Divine Nation explained. Clearly he knew more about Yi Futian. Lord Taishian and Sky River Great Elder are good friends. A cultivator of Shun clan added. It seems like Lord Taishian sent him to the Tianhe realm, so that he could study under Sky River Great Elder. Yi Futian was still so young, yet he had trained in so many places. In the 9 realms, unless the cultivators had reached the Runhuang Plain. Otherwise they seldom crossed the realms to cultivate. Only those at the Saint Plain and above were qualified to cross the realms, but it was still very risky. The sound of rhythmic sorcery grew stronger, transforming into a terrifying storm, and eradicating all things in its path. When the sound of the war drums closed in on Yi Futian again, the sound of the qin could actually penetrate it. Slowly, the song of the lost divine affected the whole illusion. He has actually mastered playing the song of the lost divine. Princess Luoyue of Taishian Mountain, who had followed Yi Futian here, got emotional when she heard the song of the lost divine. Grandmaster had an inheritor now. However, she was puzzled as to the reason why Grandmaster refused to accept Yi Futian as his disciple. Although Grandmaster had sworn to never take a disciple again, due to the death of youngest Uncle Master. When Grandmaster came across such a person, why didn't he make an exception? It would have been wonderful if Yi Futian could have cultivated in Taishian Mountain. He is seizing the initiative. Right now, the crowd felt that the pressure of the will of the statue that Yi Futian was experiencing seemed to have weakened. Or it should be said that it seemed to have been weakened by the song of the lost divine. The sound of the qin could already gradually suppress the will of the statue. An alarming storm swept out, as though the great path was flowing back out. The storm that was frightening beyond comparison started spinning outwards in the other direction, and headed towards the statue. Bang! There was a huge shocking sound. The statue trembled violently. After that, the crowd saw the statue being knocked back until it was below the sky stairwell. From the heavenly palace in the sky above, a beam of divine light shone down upon the statue. The illusions around Yi Futian disappeared without a trace. He cracked it. When the crowd saw this scene, their hearts trembled inside. Yi Futian was actually the first person to crack the will of the statue. Yi Futian was still performing. The robes on his body danced about, fluttering in the wind. The light of the great path descended upon him, surging into his body. The crowd saw a beam of brilliant divine light burst out from inside him. The current of the great path of the heavens and earth frenziedly gushed into his being. This is. Many people had astonished expressions. Excited looks flashed past in Xiaqing Yuan and Yaya's beautiful eyes. Even Yu Sheng was clenching his fists in anticipation. These were the signs that Yi Futian was about to break through to the next plane. Yi Futian's body seemed to have become a bottomless pit. It frenziedly devoured the will of the great path in his surroundings. The sound of the qin gradually came to a stop. Yi Futian retrieved a fruit of the way and immediately threw it into his mouth. A crisp chewing sound could be heard. Very quickly, he had consumed a fruit of the way. He took out a second, and then a third. Xiaqing Yuan stared wide-eyed at the scene. Other people were also equally speechless. Had anyone broken through to the next plane in such a manner? How many fruits of the way did he need to replenish his way? A frightening roar of the great path came from inside Yi Futian's body. However, just as the crowd believed that he was about to forge his divine wheel, Yi Futian suddenly opened his eyes and stood up. What was he doing? Many people looked at Yi Futian. Why didn't he directly break through to the next plane in one go? Yi Futian turned his gaze towards the heavenly palace. He had a look of anticipation in his eyes. Right now, it was not yet the time to break through to the next plane. He was still waiting for an even greater opportunity. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1641 Plundering and Fighting. Chapter 1641 Plundering and Fighting. He was too arrogant. Many people thought this as they looked at Yi Futian. He had seen the gateway to becoming a Renhuang and had not taken it. How arrogant was that? There were countless cultivators who would never reach the Renhuang plane in their entire lives. When one became a Renhuang, they would automatically be considered a great figure within the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Although perhaps this did not count for much for those who were here today, they were all from the top forces of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. In the Divine Prefecture, many of the lords of various realms were nothing more than ordinary, lower-level Renhuangs. What is he trying to do? Everyone tried to guess as they stared at him. The fact that he had chosen not to break through to the next level showed that he had even greater ambitions. He wanted to forge an even more powerful wheel of the Great Path. He must have some opportunity in mind. The celestial palace that was floating in the air was near. Could it be that he thought his chance might come there? But would he really be able to forge a more powerful wheel if he waited until then? It made sense that it would. But if he did not become a Renhuang now, how would he compete with the others for it? It could not be forgotten that Jian Qingzhu of Tianshan Academy was beside him, as well as Shun Hao of the Shun clan, and Nan Luoshan of the Nantian Divine Kingdom. Moreover, they were all at the Renhuang level now, and had forged perfect wheels of the Great Path. Even if he himself were at the Renhuang plane, Yi Futian would have a hard time fighting them, to say nothing of the fact that he was still just a saint. Bang! At that moment, someone was breaking through the statue's will. It was Jian Qingzhu from Tianshan Academy. It was just like it had been when they reached the god's relic. Yi Futian was there first, and Jian Qingzhu had followed after. More sounds rang out one after another. It was as if the powerful figures of the 9 supreme realms had talked it over. Now that Yi Futian had figured out how to proceed, they were breaking their shackles as well. Shen Hao Nan Luoshan Guizong. But at that point, Yi Futian and Jian Qingzhu were not thinking of the others. Their gazes were fixed ahead. They saw all of the statues below the stairway, as if they were still guarding it. But brilliant golden divine light was falling from the palace onto the statues, making them seem illusory. It was as if they could disappear at any time. There was a frightening look in Jian Qingzhu's eyes. It was as if he could see through anything. Soon, he could sense incomparably powerful will seeping out from the illusory-looking statues. It seemed as if all the will the god had possessed before he died was being released now. The inheritance. Jian Qingzhu's eyes became extremely sharp. Yi Futian could feel it as well. Under the divine light, the broken statues no longer seemed solid. They seemed to have transformed into pure will that was spreading outward. The will was coming from the statues, was a little bit similar to that which he had sensed earlier. It put a lot of pressure on him, just like a god of war on a battlefield would. As he was sensing the will from the statues, another person broke through. Before too long, the 9 great cultivators had all succeeded, breaking through the statue's will. It was just like Jian Qingzhu had thought. The most powerful people from the 9 realms had been selected to inherit the statue's will, and thus they had been able to break out. Even more powerful divine light shone from the palace. The statues gradually transformed into pure will, and they seemed to become even more illusory and insubstantial. We have all done this together. Each of us may inherit one of them, said Jian Qingzhu. As he said this, he took a step forward towards the statue that he had broken through. He stepped right into the now illusory figure, letting it overlap him. At that moment, divine radiance covered him, as he was enveloped in pure will. He truly is a worthy heir, everyone said as they watched. This was an incredible opportunity for him. Not only was the inheritance falling upon him, but even the will that was falling down from the palace began to disappear. This made a powerful aura sweep out over everyone until they began to tremble. Whoosh! Shen Hao, Nan Luoshan, and the others began to come forward one by one, each of them entering their own statue. Yi Futian did not move. Instead he called out, "Yu Sheng, you go." He was already at the edge of breaking through to the next level, and would be able to do so soon. However, Yu Sheng still was a little ways away. Moreover, the power that he had sensed earlier was very well suited to Yu Sheng. Thus, he was prepared to give this inheritance to him. When he heard this, Yu Sheng stepped forward towards the statue. But just as he did so, a Renhuang level force descended, covering him. It seemed to contain fierce killing will. Yi Futian looked over his shoulder, then yelled, "Be careful!" Yu Sheng naturally sensed this as well. He suddenly turned and raised his bat leaks. He lashed out with it without any hesitation. Destructive demonic light split the earth and sky as the axe descended, leaving a slash of dark light through the air. But something took control of the dark light, and an incomparably brilliant golden radiance descended, lighting up the whole area. A destructive golden spear pierced through the bat leaks, releasing a burst of power. Bang! Yu Sheng was sent flying backward. He landed on the ground, making an incredibly loud sound as his feet hit. The arm that was holding the bat leaks was shaking. Someone who could knock Yu Sheng back with divine power was clearly not someone at the same level as him. The person standing before him was a Renhuang, one from the Golden Divine Nation. Among the other cultivators of the Golden Divine Nation behind him, Gai Shishir's eyes were cold and full of killing intent. Previously, he had not competed for the god's relic, knowing that he would not be able to win. The battle outside the Divine Palace had ended badly. Yi Futian's glory was practically unlimited, and his name shook the higher heavens realm. Now, he was still showing his brilliance in the god's relic, taking a place among the best of the 9 realms. Moreover, he had succeeded in breaking through the statue's will. He had the right to inherit it. Unfortunately, the authority of heaven of the Great Path had disappeared, and the will from the statues was gone as well. Under the same situation, Yi Futian had chosen not to enter the Renhuang Plain. He had chosen to go down this dead-end path. So what could he use to compete for the inheritance? And it was not only the Golden Divine Nation who thought this. The other cultivators had made their move as well, all of them rushing over here. Their most important targets were Yi Futian and Qin Lin of the Slaughtering World, for no other reason than the fact that the 2 of them were not Renhuangs, and thus were the weakest and easiest to defeat. The other 7 were all Renhuangs, and were top-level figures anyway with perfect divine wheels. Even other Renhuangs would have trouble defeating them, to say nothing of saints. They would not try and defeat them, as they could not guarantee they would survive the attempt. So, the only ones they could deal with were Yi Futian and Qin Lin. If Yi Futian had decided to enter the Renhuang Plain, they perhaps would have been hesitant to attack him. But with the opportunity they now had, they could not afford to miss it. The road to the palace was quite long, but to cultivators of this level, the distance did not matter. Even if a battle erupted, it would be extremely close range. This was especially true for people on the Runhuang Plain. They could cover the entire area with a single thought. At that moment, the Runhuang from the Golden Divine Nation unleashed his wheel of the Great Path, and golden radiance shone from it. Incomparably sharp golden knives shot towards Yusheng, while terrible golden cauldrons pressed down from the sky, burying Yusheng within them. His wheel of the Great Path had been forged of divine cauldrons. Under the power of the wheel, the cauldrons crushed everything beneath them as they tried to smash Yusheng's body to bits. The countless points of incomparable pressure smashed into Yusheng, but a dark demonic airflow swept out from him. The images of ancient demons appeared all around him. A figure like a demonic god appeared behind him. With a terrible roar, a black dragon wrapped itself around him, its dark eyes full of life. It looked at the Runhuang from the Golden Divine Nation coldly. A look of surprise came over the Runhuang's face. He felt like an actual demonic dragon was looking at him, as if it had not just been formed out of will. "Kill him," came Gai Shirshir's cold voice. It was not only Yusheng, whom he wanted to kill. After they killed him, he also wanted to kill Yi Futian. This was a once-in-a-lifetime chance. They would not only be able to deal with Yusheng and Yi Futian, but the other cultivators as well. At that moment, many people rushed over towards Yi Futian, hoping to fight him. There were so many powerful cultivators from the 9 realms here. How could they just sit back and watch Yi Futian and Qin Lin, 2 saint-level cultivators, inherit the will from these statues? Was this not the time to fight? At that moment Lien Juyo, the cultivator from the clan of the God of Ghost in the Hidden Land realm, who had been eliminated by Nan Luotian, moved towards Yi Futian as well. Nan Luotian a perfect divine wheel, and was the daughter of Emperor Nan, making her the only princess of the Nantian divine kingdom. Thus, there was nothing Lien Juyo could have done to defeat her. But now, there was a place in the inheritance of the god's relic that could belong to him. He strode forward, his body seeming to burn with dark flames. Destructive death power spread out from him. He made a single thought, and suddenly Yi Futian felt like he was trapped in a dark prison. Whoosh! Cold, dark ghostly flames swept out towards Yi Futian. The cultivators of the clan of the God of Ghost in the Hidden Land realm kept their methods relatively secret, since they did not adhere to moral principles when they fought. Once they had decided to seize something, they would kill those who stood against them to prevent them from being a threat later. After all, Yi Futian was already at the gate to the Runhuang Plain. If they gave him any time, he could possibly break through to the next level. Then it would be much harder to kill him. So they had to solve this problem as soon as possible. Yi Futian's life aura surged, and a light curtain of the Great Path appeared around him. However, the dark death flames fell, burning the light curtain away to nothing. These were flames from the underworld, and were at the Runhuang level. A cold look came into Yi Futian's eyes, but at that moment, Lien Juyo's expression suddenly changed. A powerful killing will covered him. He suddenly disappeared from where he had been standing, transforming into a dark airflow. In the instant that he disappeared, a spear full of slaughtering will pierce towards him, leaving a black hole in the air where it hit. It had come from the 7th slayer of the clan of the 7 slayers. He, like Lien Juyo, had tried to seize an opportunity and had been eliminated by Xin Hao. But now, he was acting against Lien Juyo. Up in the air, Lien Juyo frowned and said, "There are 2 places left, we can each take one." He thought that the 7th slayer wanted to take Yi Futian's place for himself. The 7th slayer ignored him. He was good at killing, so there was no need to speak too much. He charged towards Lien Juyo. "If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters." Chapter 1642 Death 3. Chapter 1642 Death 3. At first, the 7th slayer had fought Yi Futian at the underground palace, but he had been defeated, and thus no longer had a chance to compete for the spear there. Later, they worked together at the spatial sacred hall, where he had made a surprise attack on a Runhuang from the Martial Gods Clan's alliance. He had been wounded then, but had chosen a divine arm that had helped him reach the Renhuang plain. Although there was not the least bit of friendship between him and Yi Futian, he had had some modest success on this trip to the God's Relic, and his previous defeat at Yi Futian's hands had not been too hard on him, and Yi Futian had not been cruel to him when he was wounded. As far as the seventh slayer was concerned, he had received Yi Futian's favor. Now that Lin Juyo was attacking Yi Futian, he would act in order to repay him. Lin Juyo was a top figure in the God of Ghost clan, and was a Renhuang just like the seventh slayer. His tricks of the seven killing gods could hinder his opponent, but whether or not Yi Futian could deal with the others would be up to him. The seventh slayer summoned up his fighting prowess, then forced Lin Juyo back up into the air, not letting him affect the battle below. On the other side of the battlefield, the Renhuang from the Golden Divine Nation was crushing Yu Sheng with his cauldrons. The black dragon that circled around Yu Sheng got a cold look in its eyes. With a sky-shaking roar, it surged forth, sweeping out towards the cauldrons. There was a loud ringing sound as the cauldrons were sent flying backward. The terrible dragon circled in the air, swallowing up all the will. Yu Sheng appeared upon the dragon's head. The Renhuang from the Golden Divine Nation frowned. The feeling he had had before was even more clear now. When the dragon stared at him, it felt like he was being stared at by an actual demon emperor. "You are seeking your own death," said the dragon, making the Renhuang gasp in the surprise. What was going on? How was there an actual demon emperor within Yu Sheng? If that was the case, that meant that the will of the empty imperial palace was behind him. That could not have happened under the watch of the divine general of the empty imperial palace. No, even though he has the aura of a demon emperor, he is not truly one. A look of surprise came over his face. Could he be a dragon spirit? A great demon emperor had given a dragon spirit to Yu Sheng? This would be equivalent to the emperor crippling himself. Why would it be worth it for him to do that? Even many of the disciples of a demon emperor would not be so fortunate as to have that happen for them. At most, they would leave a little bit of will behind when they were weak. But at their current level, just a little bit of will would be useless. The little bit of will would only be useful when they were weak, so they could protect themselves. But now, it seemed that a demon emperor had not cared about the cost and planted his dragon spirit into this demonic cultivator. This even shocked the cultivators of the divine dragons. Long Chun stared at this scene before him. No one understood the divine dragons more than he did. The elder who had been imprisoned in the abyss had actually done this for Yu Sheng? This meant that he looked at Yu Sheng as his heir. Since he himself was imprisoned, had he placed all his hopes on Yu Sheng? How much trust did he place in him? Threads of demonic power rolled off of Yu Sheng as he began to take in all the power in the area. He rushed forward, the dragon merging into him. At that moment, his body seemed to be that of a dragon as well. Dark demonic light fell from the sky. As Yu Sheng lashed out with his axe, the image of a terrible dragon surged forth with it. The Renhuang from the divine golden nation shot forth brilliant golden light from his divine wheel. He raised his hand towards the oncoming attack. It was a truly shocking scene. Bang! There was a loud noise as the Renhuang from the golden divine nation suddenly came under a ton of pressure. Both people were sent flying backward. To his shock, he found that Yu Sheng, whose eyes had turned black, had inherited the power of a dragon, and thus had the power to resist a Renhuang. Yi Futian watched them fight. When he saw that Yu Sheng was unharmed, he relaxed. It seemed that the divine dragons had given him a trick to hide up his sleeve. In that case, he would not worry about him anymore. Many of the cultivators from the heavenly mandate realm had gotten involved and were blocking him, including the demon emperor from the sky demon court, who was a Renhuang. There were many cultivators there, and they were only targeting two people. One of them was Qin Lin, and the other was Yi Futian. This showed how seriously they took him. 3 Renhuangs by themselves would not have been enough. Qin Lin of the slaughtering world was in a worse situation than he was. He was completely surrounded. Yi Futian slowly rose up into the air, holding his spear. Fighting will surged out of him, and he unleashed the deed of thorough comprehension as well. Golden light wrapped around him, and his body seemed to become golden. The terrible sound of elephants trumpeting rang out within him. Many illusory images appeared in the sky, looking like gods. Gai Shirshir looked at Yi Futian, and a dark look came over his face. That was the sigh of the divine god. Yi Futian was throwing it in the faces of all the golden divine nation, using the technique that he had stolen from Gai Shirshir. This was, without a doubt, intended to humiliate him. If anyone wants the inheritance, they must gamble their life to get it, said Yi Futian coldly, his voice shaking the air. Attack! Came a cold voice. There were so many forces there. How could they fear the combat ability of one man? Some cultivators directly attacked him. A terrible pattern of suffering appeared above his head, like a formation of dark gods. Destructive black lightning flashed from it, destroying everything in its path. Yi Futian looked up at the cultivators in the sky, then took a step forward. He stabbed out with his spear, and his fighting will surged into the sky and swept out in all directions. Golden light burst from the spear. Everyone saw the black lightning smash into the golden light. Powerful light stung everyone's eyes as they watched divine golden lightning shoot up into the air and destroy the black lightning. It smashed into the formation, completely annihilating it. But at almost the same instant, destructive killing power came from all other directions towards Yi Futian. For example, a mountain range in which each mountain was as sharp as a knife fell on him, and destructive spatial swords shot towards him, all arriving at the same time. Given the distance between him and his opponents, the attacks would only take a moment to reach him. The divine elephants within Yi Futian trumpeted as he stepped through the air. A mighty and radiant golden elephant covered his body. As the attacks fell upon him, they were destroyed. Even the spatial swords only made a high-pitched sound as they hit him. They could not pierce through his defenses. There were few people on the Saint Plain who could hurt him. Everyone looked shocked when they saw this. Did he really have such amazing defenses? None of them had been able to hurt him. Every step that Yi Futian took made the air shake. He disappeared from his original place. The gods in the air around him were sighing the sighs of death. He stabbed straight forward with his spear. It pierced through the air, shocking all the cultivators in front of him. The countless divine swords flying through the air formed a sword matrix. But under the attack of the spear, the matrix was utterly shattered. The spear cut through it like a knife through bamboo. Crack! One of the cultivators was pierced through, an unblemished saint from the heavenly sword hall. He looked at Yi Futian in shock before his body shattered. And he was not the only one. All of the cultivators from the heavenly sword hall around him were sent flying back, many of them with blood streaming from their mouths. The spears had cut through their flesh and crippled them. You should not have made the same mistake again, said Yi Futian. He had not fought them at Sword City, and even during the struggle at the spatial sacred hall, when they had allied with the martial gods clan against him, he had not done anything to them. Now, the heavenly sword hall was attacking him again. Why should he let them live? The other cultivators all looked back at Yi Futian. Even when they had attacked him all at once, his spear had been unmatched. The Runhuang level fighting will seem to slam into them, and even the cultivators who had not been directly struck were wounded by it. Yi Futian stood there, gripping his spear. He swept his gaze over the other cultivators and said, "Before, I told some people that it was not worth fighting any further. And then we opened the door to the god's relic and came here. I don't care that you followed me here. But if you continue to fight me, then no matter what, I promise you that you will not leave this place." He was naturally speaking to the people from the martial gods clan and the school of the Emperor Star. They bore him a grudge due to their earlier conflicts, and thus wanted to attack him. He had let them go once already, but this time he would show no mercy. Indeed, his words had a great demoralizing effect, which made the cultivators who had been rushing forward stop in their tracks. Even Wu Zhan of the martial gods clan looked shocked. Their only Runhuang had been killed. Although they were one of the top forces of the Central Emperor realm, their power in the god's relic was limited. The important thing was that Yi Futian had taken many opportunities away from them, and now he was threatening them. But his tone of voice actually made him feel threatened. He was shocked. He was of the martial gods clan, and could contend with the top powers of the Central Imperial realm. He had never felt like this before. "You opened the door to the god's relic?" said someone else with a look of surprise. Yi Futian had said that he was the one who had opened the door. Hadn't it been Jian Qingzhu? Wu Zhan, your previous battle with Yi Futian has proved some things. Yi Futian was the first to open the door to reach this place. What would be the point of continuing to fight him? He has already shown you mercy, and if you force his hand, things will not go well for you, said Yuan Hong of the Yuanyang clan. A desire to retreat gripped many of the people who had come from that direction. They understood that though they may not like it, Yuan Hong's words were true. He was the first one to open the door. Many of them looked at Yi Futian in shock. Wasn't it Jian Qingzhu? Yi Futian ignored their attention. He stepped away from them towards where Gai Shishir was standing there with a dark look on his face. When he saw Yi Futian coming towards him, his eyes narrowed. He felt a powerful threat to his very life. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1643 The Perfect Level. Chapter 1643 The Perfect Level. Yi Futian stepped forward, holding his spear out towards the people from the divine Golden Nation. Since Gai Shishir had come to him asking for trouble, he would help him find it. The enmity between them had come to its inevitable conclusion. His opponent had a strong desire to kill him, and the Runhuang from the Golden Divine Nation had tried to do so to him and Yusheng. In that case, he had no choice. It was kill or be killed. Boom. At that moment, a powerful surge of the energy of the Great Path shot out towards him. A golden cauldron fell towards him, seeming like it had fallen from the heavens. The Runhuang from the Golden Divine Nation had acted. Although he was fighting Yusheng, he was still a Runhuang after all. Using his divine wheel, he could cover the entire area, including where Yi Futian was. Seeing the power that Yi Futian had just unleashed, he could not just let him attack Gai Shishir. It was too dangerous. Bang! There was a loud noise as Yusheng's power struck him, as he was dealing with Yi Futian. The wild power sent him flying. A Runhuang had been knocked back, his divine will trembling. Yi Futian struck out with his spear at the same time, smashing it firmly into the falling cauldron and shattering it. Careful, there is someone behind you trying to take your place, someone told him telepathically. It was Dozhao. Yi Futian looked behind him and saw a cultivator rushing towards the statues. He wanted to take the inheritance. Moreover, he was a Runhuang and had many other cultivators around him. A dark look came over Yi Futian's face. There were too many cultivators here, making the situation very complicated. It was hard to deal with everything at once. I will watch them for you. A seal of a god of war appeared upon Dozhao's brow. He moved forward towards where Gai Shishir and the others were. The cultivators of the Dou tribe surrounded the cultivators of the Golden Divine Nation. A wild burst of pressure swept out. Gai Shishir stared at Dozhao, saying, "Why are you interfering with the affairs of the Golden Divine Nation?" The Dou tribe of the Ziwei realm was an ancient family with incredible combat prowess. He had no desire to provoke them. Don't you feel that it is rather shameless to sit there and attack people when they are distracted? Asked Dozhao. Moreover, do you really think you are worthy of fighting him? He was confident that there were few among the 9 supreme realms of his generation who could defeat him. He was not familiar with Gai Shishir, but he showed scorn for him anyway. Even if he had reached the Runhuang plain earlier, he would not have worried. An ugly look came over Gai Shishir's face. Dozhao's words seemed to have hit a sore spot. After all, Yi Futian had beaten him quite severely. Then I wished to see just how powerful the will of the Dou tribe really is. Gai Shishir released his aura, and an image of a celestial god formed in the air above him. Dozhao looked at him with disdain. More and more seals appeared on his brow. Beams of divine light shot through his body, as his will became even more powerful. His aura continued to rise, and the image of a fighting god appeared behind him. Bang! He stepped forward, staring at Gai Shishir. He raised his fist and lashed out. The sound of a god sighing rang out. Gai Shishir gripped his spear and thrust it out. Golden lightning clashed in the air as a wild pressure swept out. Gai Shishir was sent flying backward. And it was not only him. The other cultivators of the golden divine nation around him were all knocked back by the storm. Truly weak. Dou Zhao's eyes were full of disdain. This made a dark look come over Gai Shirshi's face. On the other side, Yi Futian was naturally watching the others, trying to inherit the will from the statue that he had left for Yu Sheng. But at that moment, a strong force moved over there, pushing through the crowd. A Renhuang-level figure was among them, as they moved towards the statue. It seemed that they wanted the inheritance as well. They were very strong, and seemed rather unyielding. Previously, other cultivators had been fighting them, but they had been swept aside. They were from Celestial Worthy Temple in the Central Imperial Realm, one of the top powers of that realm. Previously they had only been observing. Although they had not directly competed for the statue's will, there were 9 places, and one of them should naturally be there. The Central Imperial Realm was at the center of the 9 realms, and had the most forces within it, but they had only won 3 places. This was not nearly enough. Although the people from Celestial Worthy Temple were not the most powerful members of their generation, they still deserved a place. When Yi Futian turned around, the Renhuang from Celestial Worthy Temple looked at him and said, "You may have unlocked the statues, but there is no place for you here. Go and find something else to do." No matter how talented Yi Futian was, it meant nothing. Talent was talent, and background was background. But you also needed to consider one's background. No matter how powerful or talented you were, it was not enough for the people of the Central Imperial Realm. Even if you were at the peak of your abilities, what did it matter? Yi Futian gripped his spear tightly, and Renhuang-level fighting will surged out of him. But this was not a place where he could unleash his will of the Emperor. The Renhuang before him seemed stronger than Wu Meng of the Martial Gods clan. If he couldn't unleash the will of the Emperor, it would be tough to deal with him. Seeing that Yi Futian was still standing there, the Renhuang from Celestial Worthy Temple raised an eyebrow and asked, "You are not willing to fight?" If he didn't want to fight, then what was he doing? Powerful fighting will wrapped around Yi Futian, growing stronger and stronger like a terrible storm. Feeling the aura coming off him, the Renhuang did not continue on to the statue. Instead, he raised his arm and waved his fingers through the air. In a flash, a suffocating power covered the sky. Yi Futian felt the world change, like a supreme being was pressing its fingers down upon him. Each finger was like a golden mountain, thick enough to crush the sky, yet sharp enough to cut through the very air. He was crushed within them, and he felt like he could not breathe. Impossibly brilliant fighting will wrapped around him. He stepped forward, and the sound of an elephant trumpeting shook the sky. There was another sound of a god sighing, and he pushed his spear forward towards the 5 golden fingers. Bang! There was a loud noise as the 2 incomparably strong forces collided. The 5-finger mountains shattered with a booming sound and pieced rained down. But Yi Futian was knocked down to a lower part of the sky, as well until his feet landed on the ground with a slam. The arm that was holding the spear trembled. This man was clearly much stronger than Wu Meng. "You won't be able to handle the inheritance," Yi Futian said to the cultivators of the Celestial Worthy Temple. "You may speak to me only once you have reached the next level," said the Renhuang. His aura was overpowering. He knew that Yi Futian was about to break through to the next level, and had conquered realms before. But he did not care. Even if he broke through to the next level, what would it matter? The Renhuang would already have the inheritance. At that moment, powerful sword will shot over from a distance, and the Renhuang felt an aura of the same level as his own. A Renhuang's thoughts were sweeping towards him. He looked up into the air, and his expression changed. Brilliant golden divine light appeared in the sky. He could sense even more powerful sword will. He raised his hand, and shot a palm print across the distance. The 5-fingered palm print shot up into the air, where it split the sky. A brilliant divine sword was falling from the heavens, leaving a line in the air as it fell. Whoosh! A powerful aura descended along with the sword as it cut through the palm print, turning it into nothingness. The sword had lost some momentum though, and it shrieked as it stopped in the air, then flew back up. In the distance, a figure stepped forward through the air. The sword entered his body. It was clearly his sword. "Who are you?" The Renhuang from the Celestial Worthy Temple could feel a powerfully threatening aura. He narrowed his eyes as he looked at the figure in the distance. Futian looked at the descending figure as well. Then a smile appeared on his face. So he's broken through to the next level, he thought to himself. The person before his eyes was the sword master of Lihen. He had now become a renhuang. He had only rushed here after cultivating for a long time. He had finally reached the legendary realm that he had always wanted to reach. This was definitely something worth getting excited about for the sword master of Lihen. Now the sword master of Lihen's aura had changed. The great path was one with his form. He stood there straight as a sword reaching up to the heavens. "Congratulations, sword master," said Futian with a smile. The sword master of Lihen looked at Futian and inclined his head with a smile. This was something he had dreamed about for a long time, and he had finally achieved it. Not only had he reached the Renhuang plane, but his entire self was also transformed. The endless sword will of Sword City had baptized him. Futian had given him this chance. This went far beyond just a gift. He even dared to wonder if he was more powerful than His Majesty Emperor Xia now. He swept his gaze over the Renhuang from the celestial worthy temple, then towards Yusheng's battle. Yusheng was facing a Renhuang as well. "How can we deal with this?" he asked. "Attack," answered Futian. It was as simple as a single word. The swordmaster of Lihen said nothing else. Incomparably brilliant divine light shone in the air, lighting up the sky. Below him, Yusheng and the Renhuang from the Golden Divine Nation felt a threat to their very lives. They both looked shocked. They suddenly looked up and saw incomparably dazzling divine swords falling from the sky. The Renhuang's wheel of the Great Path surged with power, making more cauldrons descend from above. Crack! The sword light pierced through the sky, descending towards the earth. In the next instant, the Renhuang from the Golden Divine Nation froze in place. "Impossible," he yelled. Just as he said this, his body split in two. "No!" The cultivators from the Golden Divine Nation watched this in shock. They all began to feel afraid. Their Renhuang had been killed. Moreover, he had been killed by a single sword. "Are you at the perfect level?" Futian asked the sword master of Lihen, joy in his eyes. It seemed like the sword master had gambled correctly. He had destroyed his own path and reforged his sword, putting the sword will from Sword City into it, and baptizing his body and soul in it, thus forging a wheel of the Great Path. He had had a perfect opportunity to forge a perfect, unblemished wheel of the Great Path. This was something that would have been impossible before. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1644 Fallen. Chapter 1644 Fallen. This sword was brilliant. It had slain a Renhuang with a single strike. Everyone could feel the aura of the swordmaster's divine wheel. Its brilliant, perfect radiance covered the area in sword will. Even the people from top forces looked surprised by this. Everyone knew a little bit about the divine wheel's level, but those core few who were from the top forces without a doubt knew the most. Especially the people from the Heavenly Mandate Realm, the Higher Heavens Realm, and the Myriad Realm, who had seen the Sword Master of Lihen be defeated by the swordsman from Heavenly Sword Hall. They looked more surprised than anyone else. He had improved so quickly. Was it even possible for him to have changed so much? So what was the meaning of being a so-called proud son of heaven? This obviously went against common sense. Yuan Hong of the Yuanyang clan had been at Sword City. He looked at the sword master of Lihen. He had really forged a perfect wheel. The great emperor had unified the world, and every 50 years opened up the god's relic. It was said that there would be opportunities to forge perfect wheels within the god's relic, giving it an independent place in the world. It had the same use as some of the secrets of the top powers, but it was even more unique. Thus, the people who had come here before did so both for the god's relic itself, but also for the chances it afforded to prove themselves worthy of advancing to the next level. Shenhao, Nen Luoshan, Jian Qingzhu, and more had all forged perfect divine wheels here. However, although the god's relic was an extraordinary place, it was not guaranteed that one would be able to forge a perfect divine wheel here. It still depended on the opportunity that one received and their base level of power. The Swordmaster of Lihan had clearly been lacking quite a bit, and so he should not have been able to do what he did. The only explanation could be that at the battle at Sword City, the Swordmaster of Lihan had destroyed his own foundation in order to forge it anew. That would have taken great courage. Moreover, he had had no choice. He could only fight for his life. Either he would have died under the divine sword will, or he would have broken and then stood up again later. All the sword will in Sword City had gone into him. However, this had all happened by chance. If the choice was given to him now, would he have the courage to gamble again? Yuan Hong thought there was about a 50-50 chance that he would. Perhaps this was the chance he was waiting for. Yuan Hong thought as he watched the Swordmaster of Lihan. He had entered the Runhuang Plain at its highest point, ignoring the fact that he had not been talented enough in the past. He had completely changed. If he got another opportunity like this in the future, he would likely become one of the most powerful figures in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. This was not only true for the Swordmaster of Lihan. Anyone who created a perfect divine wheel would stand among the top figures of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Indeed, many of the rulers of the 9 realms did not even have perfect divine wheels. As a descendant of one of the top figures of the Central Imperial Realm, Yuan Hong was very clear about his own quality. When Jian Qingzhu, Shen Hao, and Nan Luoshan had succeeded, he had not been too disturbed. After all, they were already fated to be the future rulers of the 9 realms. But the Swordmaster of Lihan was different. This was truly shocking. Without a doubt, the people who were most shocked were the people from the Golden Divine Nation, Gai Shi, and the others. The person who had been killed was their Renhuang. They had lost a Renhuang, and the Swordmaster of Lihan had arrived. The tables had turned completely. If Yi Futian wanted to kill all of them, how could they stop him? Bang! An incredibly loud sound rang out as Gai Shi was sent flying by Do Zhao's fist. He could hear Do Zhao's voice rolling like thunder. Now, do you know what fear is? Previously, when he had taken advantage of these people when they were weak, he had not been the least bit polite. When the Swordmaster of Lihan killed the Runhuang from the Golden Divine Nation, those cultivators who had wanted to steal Yi Futian's statue fled. They seemed to have abandoned their previous plans. Why hadn't they dared to do this earlier? It was because the others were all very strong. Talented Renhuangs were the top figures here in the God's Relic. Now that the Swordmaster of Lihan was here, Yi Futian's side had won as well. If they wanted to steal from them, they would be seeking their own doom. After killing the Runhuang from the Golden Divine Nation, the Swordmaster of Lihan began moving towards Yi Futian. With every step, brilliant sword light shone, descending upon the cultivators from Celestial Worthy Temple. Sword will filled the air. The Renhuang from Celestial Worthy Temple frowned. He could feel his divine will come under a great amount of pressure. Although he had not been able to forge a perfect divine wheel, his was still at the celestial level. When added to his position as the proud son of heaven of Celestial Worthy Temple, he was incredibly strong. But even so, he still felt like he was under pressure. He raised his fist, his fingers like 5 divine golden mountains. He reached out towards the Swordmaster of Lihan up in the sky. Endless sword will appeared in the air, swallowing up all the radiance. The Swordmaster of Lihan moved, and his sword flashed out. With that one slash, it looked like thousands of swords were born. Each of the fingers were cut through, one by one, and shattered violently. The Swordmaster of Lihan pierced forward towards the Runhuang from Celestial Worthy Temple below him. Up in the air, a falling sky sword was descending. It transformed into countless swords that seemed like they would destroy the entire area. Feeling that terrible sword power, the cultivator from Celestial Worthy Temple unleashed brilliant light. The Swordmaster of Lihan's sword was incredibly fast, and it reached him in the time it took to think a single thought. But it was blocked by a golden mountain. Below it, the Runhuang from Celestial Worthy Temple was waving his hands. "Go," he said. The other cultivators from Celestial Worthy Temple disappeared from their original places. Bang! There was a loud noise as the swords fell and destroyed the mountain. But the cultivators from Celestial Worthy Mountain were already far away. turning into golden afterimages. And they were getting even farther away. A ritual implement. Futian stared at his opponents. They had moved extremely quickly. There's one more over there, Swordmaster. He was looking up into the air. The demon emperor from the Sky Demon Court was fighting another Renhuang. It was another person who wanted to steal one of the statues. All right. As the Swordmaster of Lihan said this, his figure disappeared as he flew quickly through the air. Brilliant sword light appeared in the air, and blood seemed to be dripping from it. Everyone's hearts beat faster when they saw this. There was another sword. 2 Renhuangs had been slain by a single sword, and the one from Celestial Worthy Temple had only escaped due to his ritual implement. It seemed that there was no longer any doubt about who would get this inheritance. No one could compete for it. Yusheng, go ahead, called Futian. Yusheng retracted his aura and walked towards Futian. Go on. Futian looked at the statue and saw the divine light falling upon it. It was glowing brilliantly. Yusheng did not say anything. He just walked over there and stepped into the statue. Futian watched him. Previously, Yusheng had been at a lower level than him and had never been as close to the Rehuang plane. Now, this inheritance would be enough to let him overtake him. He would rush all the way towards the Renhuang plane. He turned his gaze to the other battlefield. He narrowed his eyes. Killing will was spreading out. He was not thinking of giving up now. Dou Zhao had been pressing Gai Shirshir all this time. But when he saw Futian coming, he made way for him. The Dou tribe had surrounded the cultivators of the Golden Divine Nation. None of them had escaped. Futian looked at Gai Shirshir and saw that his face had gone pale. There seemed to be a deep fear in his eyes. He could see the killing intent in Futian's eyes. How do you want to die? Asked Futian. His voice was extremely calm, but it made a dark look come over Gai Shirshir's face. Futian had truly come to kill him this time. Last time, when he was leaving the Divine Palace, Futian had not dared kill him. But now he was not sure. At the very least, Futian's desire to kill him was clear in his eyes. Futian reached out, gripping his spear, fighting while wrapping around it. Terrible spear light shone from it. If you can survive this spear strike, I will let you go. Futian pointed the spear at Gai Shirshir. There was a gloomy look in Gai Shirshir's eyes as he stared at Futian. Was he seeking to humiliate him? A single spear strike. But given Futian's power, Gai Shirshir could not be sure of surviving even a single spear strike. He said nothing. The golden blood that flowed through his veins surged, and his body became golden. It was as if he had been forged of it. He gripped his golden divine spear and stepped forward. His endless will transformed into the figure of a celestial god. He stepped into the air. He was Gai Shirshir, the foremost junior of the Golden Divine Nation, with enough talent to shock the world. Could he really not bear a single spear strike? Are you ready? Asked Futian. Even more powerful fighting will burst out from him towards Futian. At this moment, Gai Shirshir felt that he was not facing Futian, but a god of war. Whoosh! Golden light shone brilliantly as the sound of a god sighing rang out. A golden ancient god descended from the sky towards Futian. Gai Shirshir was not going to take his lying down, but would instead attack. He was skilled at attacking, and in fact, there were few in the higher heavens realm who could match him in that regard. He had the initiative, so he would naturally take that opportunity to attack. He would like to see Futian try to kill him with a single spear strike. Futian saw Gai Shirshir coming towards him, then stepped forward, making the air shake. He struck out with the spear, as powerful as a dragon, and a terrifying storm whipped up. Neither of them tried to avoid their opponent's attack. The spears collided, unleashing a terrible destructive light as they clashed. Everyone saw the divine spear trembling, and then they saw Gai Shirshir's arm shaking. Then his body. Bang! A terrible sound came out of his golden body. Then, as everyone watched in shock, many booming sounds rang out from his body. Then he began to crack apart. No! A look of shock came over Gai Shirshir's face. When he said this, golden blood began to pour out of him. His body disappeared, leaving no trace. He's really dead. Everyone trembled as they saw this, particularly the people of the higher heavens realm. That was Gai Shirshir, of the bloodline of the Golden Divine Nation. Futian had really killed him. Moreover, what kind of power was this? A single spear strike had destroyed Guy Shirshi's body. Just how strong was he? He had absolutely crushed Guy Shirshi. What kind of level was this? One of the top figures of the higher heavens realm had fallen in the god's relic. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.